Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, and in this presentation on strategy and tactics in World War I turn to 1915 and what Mark Ferro, the French historian, called the year of weak point strategy, when alternative means to at least gain an advantage, if not a breakthrough, were sought. Now it was largely a political, not a military initiative. Generals on both sides still believed that the war would be won and lost on the Western Front, and they all attempted a breakthrough there as well. Nevertheless, attention shifted to Italy, which had joined the war on the side of the Entente powers, and to the Balkans, which is where I'm going to focus. The advantages for both alliances were potentially considerable. For the Central Powers, there was the chance to attack Russia. Turkey was already doing just that, bombarding Russian ports on the Black Sea. The Turks also crossed the Sinai Desert and attacked the Suez Canal, the jugular vein for Britain and its empire. Amongst the Entente powers there was a division between Westerners, led by General Joffre, who continued to see the Western Front as key to victory. After all, French soil was being occupied by German soldiers. And Easterners, led by Lloyd George, Churchill and Lord Kitchener, who felt that if France was left to hold the stalemate on the Western Front, then fresher British and Empire forces could be better deployed in a Balkan campaign. This could take out Turkey and open a route to take on Austria-Hungary and eventually Germany from the south, while Austria-Hungary could also be attacked by the Italians. It would also relieve Russia and open a supply route to Russia through the Dardanelles, and Russia had called for just such a campaign at the end of 1914. It could also draw the Balkan states more conclusively into the war, tempted by territorial gains from Turkey. Besides, Britain and France had eyes on their own territorial gains from Turkey's Middle Eastern Empire. It may even draw German troops from the Western Front that would relieve France, and overstretching its ability to continue fighting. So there was much to be said for a Balkan campaign. Salonika in northern Greece was considered for the launch of a Balkan campaign, as from there Serbia could be easily helped. But it was decided to launch an attack on the Dardanelles so as to help Russia. It was first thought, though, that a landing by troops would not be necessary. A joint Anglo-French naval campaign, knocking out the Turkish forts and forcing their way up the Dardanelles to attack Constantinople, would probably be enough to bring the Turks to sue for peace, abandoning the Central Powers and returning to a state of neutrality. The Entente powers would then be free to push up into the Black Sea, join with the Russians and take on Austria-Hungary via the River Danube. So, in March, the British and French bombarded the Turkish forts and shore batteries guarding the Dardanelles and occupied an island. The mines at the entrance to the straits were swept clear, but when the fleet tried to enter them, it struck mines that had been laid overnight. 3 battleships were sunk, a 4th had to be beached, and a 5th ship was put out of action. The damage to the navies as a whole was slight, as the ships were old and due to be scrapped. Still, rightly or wrongly, and there were those, including Churchill, who wanted to continue with the naval operation, it was abandoned. Confidence had been lost. So the British turned their thoughts to a land campaign. Lord Kitchener was confident that the Turks could be easily dealt with, but it turned out to be a disaster. At every point, bad planning and poor leadership plagued the campaign. The equipment had been loaded wrongly, with essential equipment put at the bottom, and the transport ships had to head back to Alexandria to reload. And the time that took was put to good use by the Turks, under the command of the German General von Sanders. Do you remember him from the causes of the war? He prepared their defences to very good effect. Consequently, when the British, French and Anzac troops landed, they met with a well-organised and very determined resistance, whereas the British were poorly led by General Sir Ian Hamilton, who directed the landings and much of the campaign from his ship, or else a distant Greek island. The preparation for the landings had been very poor. Apart from the critical factors that not enough men nor equipment had been committed, there were no disembarkation plans, no detailed maps. Indeed, one of the landings took place at the wrong point, and they all faced terrain that consisted of cliffs and steep ridges, which of course favoured the defenders. Neither was there any coordination between the different landings once they had moved off the beaches. The Entente lost approximately 250,000 men killed, wounded or missing, which amounted to half the numbers committed to the campaign. The Turks had lost 55,000 men, and these were their best troops. But the Entente forces had been defeated, and the British government embarrassed. Gallipoli was a disaster. Logistical needs were not properly assessed. The strength of the opposition was badly underestimated, and their own strengths badly overestimated. Precious resources had been wasted, not least men. As the spring offensives on the Western Front were being launched, artillery pieces and ammunition were being shipped to Gallipoli. They were still there when the autumn offensives were launched. However, the failure of the campaign led to a number of significant changes. Admiral Fisher, the first Sea Lord, who had never been in favour of the campaign, resigned. The Conservative Party and the Labour Party joined the Liberal government in a coalition government, and as a condition of the Conservatives joining it, Churchill was removed from his position of First Lord of the Admiralty. Lord Kitchener lost control of military supplies, as Lord George was made Minister of Munitions. He would soon lose all influence with the government, as Asquith made Sir William Robertson Chief of the Imperial General Staff, and the government's sole advisor on strategic matters. The Prime Minister himself would eventually be a victim of the campaign's failure too, but that wouldn't be until the end of 1916. Now this is nothing more than a brief overview, and I'll repeat my offer to send you my notes if you think they might be useful, and obviously I think they're very useful. Just email me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and I'll send them to you. And as I've said, this is not a scam. You won't hear from me again. I'm just happy to help. As it is, I hope what I've been able to squeeze in here has been useful for you. Thank you so much for listening, and the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.